The restaurant was small, bright, and a little noisy, the kind of place where birthdays and retirement dinners all looked the same. Tonight, the balloons on the walls said congratulations, and a paper banner with crooked letters hung over the long table. Henry sat at the head of that table in a plain shirt and old jacket, hands folded, letting his family and a few former colleagues fuss over him. His daughter, Laura, sat beside him, touching his arm now and then as if to check he was really there. Across from him, her husband Daniel kept glancing at his watch and the bar. Plates were mostly empty. Glasses of water and soda and cheap wine stood among crumbs and napkins. When the noise began to settle, Daniel stood up and clapped his hands. "One last toast for the man of the night," he said, loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. He walked to the bar, disappeared behind a half wall, and came back holding a single drink in a tall, thin glass. The liquid inside was pale and cloudy, like juice mixed with something that did not want to blend. He set it in front of Henry with a smile that showed teeth but not much warmth. "Special drink just for you, Dad," he said. Henry looked down at it. Up close, the drink had a faint chemical smell under the sweet scent. Tiny specks hung in the liquid instead of sinking. He did not wrinkle his nose. He did not pull back. Years in the service had taught him that obvious reactions gave away too much. He lifted the glass, feeling Daniel's eyes on his hand. Everyone around the table raised their own glasses and leaned forward. "To Henry," someone shouted. In that brief moment, with bodies and arms blocking the view, Henry's other hand moved. Next to the cloudy drink sat another glass, the same shape, filled with plain, sparkling water. Henry set the cloudy glass down and picked up the clear one in a single smooth motion, as natural as shifting his grip. From across the table it looked like nothing at all. He raised the harmless drink to his lips and took a small sip. Daniel, still watching, saw the tilt of the glass and seemed to relax a little. The cloudy drink now sat a few inches back from the main cluster of glasses, untouched. Henry set the water down and let a small, tired smile spread across his face as his old colleagues cheered and clapped his back. He let them talk about the old days, about how he once fixed a broken truck with wire, about how he always checked doors twice. Inside, his mind had gone still in the way it used to go still on patrol. The smell of the drink, the way Daniel had gone behind the bar himself, the tension in the younger man's jaw as he watched, it all formed a pattern Henry did not like. It was not proof yet, but it was enough to make him pay close attention. Henry had spent most of his life in uniform. He had learned to notice what others missed, a fresh footprint where there should be none, a reflection in a distant window, a change in a man's voice. When he came home for good, he took a steady job at a warehouse, saved what he could, and bought a small house in a quiet street. His military pension came each month. He added a little more from his wages, bought life insurance, and wrote a simple will that left everything to Laura. It was not much by some standards, but it was enough that he could sleep at night and know his daughter would not be left with nothing. Laura was steady and kind. She visited often, worried about his blood pressure, and argued with him about how much salt he put on his food. When she married Daniel, Henry tried to see what she saw. Daniel could be charming, quick with a joke, full of plans. But the jobs never lasted. He always had a new idea, a new scheme that would fix their money this time. He talked about easy money more than hard work. Small comments had started to bother Henry. "Must be nice to have that pension," Daniel would say, half joking. "Government pays you no matter what. Or, you've got good life insurance, right? After everything you did, it must be a decent amount." Once, over dinner, he had asked, "So when you're gone, what happens with the house?" Henry remembered that one clearly. He did not shout or accuse. He simply said, "My daughter will be all right," and changed the subject. Later, Laura had asked if his will was properly organized and if he needed help with forms. Her worry was real, but she shared a home with a man who looked at Henry's age and saw numbers. Now, as the party rolled on, Henry let the others talk while he watched. A cake arrived with too many candles. They sang in rough voices. Laura hugged him from behind as he blew them out. One of his old colleagues made a small speech about Henry's stubbornness and honesty. People laughed and clapped. Henry stood for photos and jokes. playing the role of the good-natured retiree. At the same time, he tracked Daniel's eyes. Daniel laughed at the right spots, clinked glasses, and showed polite interest when people mentioned old stories. But his gaze kept drifting back to the part of the table where the cloudy drink sat today. When a waiter reached toward it as he cleared plates, Daniel moved quickly. "We'll handle that," he said, pulling his hand back. When Henry lifted any glass, even if it was water, Daniel's shoulders tensed, then eased when he set it down. It was small, but Henry had lived a life where small details mattered. When the evening was almost over, Henry reached for the suspicious glass again. "Let me get this out of the way," he said casually. He stood up with a small groan, as if his knees hurt, and carried the glass toward the bar at a slow, careful pace. Daniel watched him go. The bartender, a young man with tired eyes, came over. "Done with that, sir?" he asked. "Almost," Henry said. He nodded at the drink. "Did you make this one?" The bartender glanced at it and shook his head. "No, sir. Your son-in-law did. He asked if he could use the back area and mixed it himself. Said it was a special drink just for you and that we should make sure no one else got it." He gave a small shrug. "We figured it was some family thing." Henry looked at the cloudy liquid for a long second. His jaw tightened, but his face stayed calm. "Could I get a little container with a lid?" he asked. "I might want to ask him about this later." The bartender raised his eyebrows but handed him a small plastic takeout cup with a tight lid. Henry poured the drink into it, sealed it carefully, and slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket. "Thank you," he said. "You've been very helpful." He carried the now empty glass back to the table and made a small joke about saving the staff work. The night ended with hugs and promises to visit. At the door, Daniel gripped his hand. "You feeling okay?" he asked, eyes sharp. "Just tired," Henry said, letting his shoulders sag. "It's been a long day." Daniel studied his face, then forced a laugh and walked away, putting an arm around Laura. Henry walked out into the cool air with his daughter on one side and the sealed container resting against his ribs. He had no proof of intent yet, but he had enough to move to the next step. The next morning, the house was quiet. Henry set his folders on the kitchen table: pension papers, bank statements, life insurance, the deed to his house, his will. Beside them, on a folded paper towel, sat the little container with a cloudy drink. He went through each document slowly. The numbers were modest but solid. His health was not perfect, but his mind was clear. There was nothing in the papers that gave anyone else control over him. He thought about the last few months. Laura asking if his will was in order. Daniel hovering when she brought over a few forms he had helped prepare, telling Henry he could sign them sooner rather than later, in case your memory starts slipping. Henry had pretended his eyes were too tired that evening and locked the unsigned forms away. Now those memories clicked into place. He picked up his phone and scrolled to a name he had not used in a while: Mark Willis, an old friend from his service days who had become a lawyer. Mark's work now focused on fraud and older clients. If anyone would take this seriously, it would be him. "Henry," Mark said when he answered. "You still alive?" "Apparently someone has other plans," Henry said dryly. Then he laid out the facts: the special drink, the bartender's words, the smell and look of the liquid, Daniel's eyes, the recent talk about wills and documents. He did not accuse. He just described. Mark's tone changed from joking to serious. "You did the right thing keeping the drink," he said. "First, I'll send you to a lab that can test it. Don't open it again. Second, with your permission, I'll check with your bank and insurance to see if anyone has been asking questions or trying to start paperwork with your name on it." "You have my permission," Henry said. "I want to know, not guess." That same day, Henry drove the sealed container to the lab Mark recommended. He handed it over, signed a form asking for a full toxicology screen, and went home. While he waited, Mark called him back with early findings. "There have been calls from Daniel to your insurance company," Mark said. He asked about changing beneficiaries and about who could manage your funds if you developed memory problems. He also spoke to the bank about power of attorney. Nothing has gone through yet, but his poking around. Henry listened without interrupting. "So," he said at last, "he's not just careless. He's planning." "Looks that way," Mark replied. "We'll wait for the lab report." When we have that, we'll decide how hard to push. Don't confront him alone and angry. You deserve better than a shouting match. 3 days later, the lab results arrived. Mark called early. The drink contained a strong sedative, he said. In your body, with your medication, it could have made you collapse or seem very confused. It might not kill you outright, but it would make you look like you suddenly lost your mind. If someone wanted proof that you needed help managing your life, that would do it. Henry let out a slow breath. The facts settled in his chest like weight. Thank you, he said. Send me the report. It's time I talked to my family. A few days later, Laura and Daniel came to his house in the afternoon. The living room was tidy. The coffee table held 2 neat stacks of papers and nothing else. In the next room, Mark sat at the small dining table with his laptop open and a small recorder beside it. He had driven over, saying he preferred to be in the house instead of on a call in case things turned serious. Laura hugged her father at the door. You scared me when you said you wanted a serious talk, she said. You're not sick, are you? I'm not dying, Henry said. Come in. We'll sit. They settled in the living room. Henry took his armchair. Laura and Daniel sat on the couch. The light from the window fell across the table. For a minute, they spoke about small things, the weather, a neighbor's barking dog, a show Laura was watching. Then Henry placed a hand on the stack of his own papers. I asked you here because I've been thinking about what happens as I get older, he said. I don't want confusion when I'm gone. I want things clear for you, Laura. That means being careful with my house, my pension, my savings, my insurance. I'd like to talk about that. That's exactly what we've been saying, Daniel replied quickly. He put his own folder on the table and slid it toward Henry. I did some paperwork already. These forms will let us help you if something happens. Power of attorney, medical decisions, all that. It's just protection. People your age do this all the time. Laura nodded. We just want you safe, Dad, she said. We don't want anyone cheating you. Henry opened Daniel's folder. The pages were full of legal language. He saw phrases like full authority, financial management, without additional consent, tied to Daniel's name. His own possible decline was mentioned in soft words that still carried power. He let his forehead crease as if confused. I'm not a lawyer, he said. Explain it to me, Daniel. What does this actually give you the right to do? It lets me pay your bills, manage your accounts, talk to doctors, make decisions if you can't, Daniel said smoothly. We just want to avoid chaos. If you had a fall or got confused, we'd be stuck without this. This is just being smart. Why you instead of Laura? Henry asked quietly. She's my daughter. She hates paperwork, Daniel said at once. You know that. I handle the forms and numbers at home. This takes pressure off her too. We're a team. He picked up a pen and set it on the top page. If you sign these today, we can get everything in place, he said. No stress, no rush later. Henry let the silence stretch until it grew heavy. Then his posture changed. He straightened in his chair. Before I sign anything, he said in a clear voice, I want to show you something. He put Daniel's folder aside and took his own. From it he pulled the lab report and set it in the center of the table. The lab's name and the words toxicology report were printed plainly at the top. This is the result of a test on a drink I was given at my retirement dinner, Henry said. A drink that you mixed behind the bar, Daniel, and told the staff to serve only to me. Laura blinked. What drink? She asked. Daniel's fingers tightened on his knees. Henry, come on, he said quickly. You're making this sound. Henry raised a hand. The report says the drink contained a strong sedative, he continued calmly. Enough to make me fall or seem confused, especially with my blood pressure pills. At the same time, you were calling my insurance and bank about how to control my money if my memory went bad. My friend Mark checked the records. At that, Mark stepped into the doorway, still and serious. I've been listening with Henry's permission, he said. I have copies of call notes from your number, Daniel. You told an insurance agent that Henry might be losing his memory and asked what you needed to do to take over his accounts. Together with this lab report, that paints a clear picture. Laura's eyes went wide. She grabbed the report, scanning the highlighted parts. Daniel, she whispered, tell me this isn't real. Daniel lifted his hands. I was worried about him, he said in a rush. He's stubborn. He never lets anyone help. I thought if he got worse, we'd be stuck. The drink was just to help him relax. I looked online. Maybe I used too much. I panicked. Okay? I didn't mean harm. What did you put in it? Mark asked. Some sleep drops, Daniel muttered. They said they were safe. Safe when the person knows is taking them, Mark said. Not hidden in a drink. Henry watched his son-in-law for a long moment. You married my daughter, he said quietly. You sit at my table. You knew I trusted you enough to let you into my house. And you chose to use my age as a chance to reach for my money. That is what this looks like. Daniel's voice rose. We're drowning in bills, he said. I just wanted some security. I thought if we could manage things better. You thought if something happened to me, Henry said, you would be ready with papers already signed and a story about my failing mind. He shook his head. That will not happen. Mark stepped closer. We will file a report with the police and with the agencies involved, he said. Whether they press charges is up to them, but your actions are already on record now. If you try this with anyone else, this will follow you. Daniel looked at Laura, searching her face for support. You know I love you, he said. Tell them I wouldn't hurt your dad. Tell them we were just trying to help. Tears filled her eyes. Trying to help who? She asked. Me? Or yourself? You hid drugs in his drink and tried to get control of his money. That's not help. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Daniel stood up, grabbed his folder, and walked to the door. If I'm going to be treated like a criminal, I'm leaving, he said. He went out without waiting for an answer. The sound of the door closing was sharp and final. Silence filled the room. Laura looked at the report again, then at her father. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I didn't see it. I should have. Henry moved to sit beside her on the couch. His knees hurt, but he ignored them. He put a hand on her shoulder. You saw what you wanted to see, he said softly. You loved him. That is not a crime. What matters is that now you see what he chose to be. Over the next days, Henry and Mark did what needed to be done. They changed Henry's legal papers so that no form gave Daniel any power. They updated his will to protect Laura and any future grandchildren, with safeguards so no one person could act alone. They put notes on his bank and insurance files about attempted manipulation and attached the lab report. A file opened with the police. It was possible nothing dramatic would come of it, but Daniel's actions were no longer hidden. Laura stayed with a friend while she decided what to do with her marriage. Some evening she came to Henry's house and sat at the kitchen table. They drank tea, talked about daily things, and sometimes touched on harder topics. Henry did not tell her to stay or leave. He just reminded her that she deserved honesty, not hidden drugs in the bottom of a glass. Henry settled into retirement on his own terms. He still woke early out of habit. He made coffee, read the news, and took short walks around the block. On some days he went to the Veterans Center, sat across a card table from men who understood quiet battles, and let the familiar sound of their dry jokes fill the room. He kept his folders in a safe place and checked them now and then, more to reassure himself than from fear. One evening, as the sun lowered and the sky turned soft orange, Henry sat on his porch with Laura. The street was calm. Children's voices carried from farther down. Do you ever wish you didn't see problems so fast? Laura asked suddenly, that you could just trust people and not question them. Henry thought about it. Seeing danger early kept me alive, he said. This time, it kept me from drinking something that was not meant to help me. I don't like what that says about someone in our family, but I'd like it even less if I had ignored what I saw. She nodded, staring at her hands. I'm glad you're still here, she said quietly. So am I, he replied. And I'm glad I could show you that you're stronger than you feel. You can make your own choices now, with your eyes open. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the street. The porch light clicked on as the sky darkened. Inside the house, in a locked drawer, Henry's documents lay in order. Pension, savings, house, insurance, will. No one would sign on his behalf without his clear say. No one could quietly move his life around like pieces on a board. Henry had seen many battles in his time. Some had left scars on his body. Others had left marks no one could see. This last one had not used bullets or uniforms. It had used a special drink at a family dinner and words about help and safety. But the answer was the same as it had always been. Pay attention, stand your ground, protect the people you love and the life you built. As night settled over the street, Henry leaned back in his chair and let out a slow breath. He was older now, yes. His knees hurt, his hands were not as steady as they once were. But his mind was clear, his will strong. He had kept control of his own life and drawn a line that would not be crossed. In his small house, with his daughter beside him and his future guarded by more than hope, he finally felt that retirement did not mean surrender. It meant choosing, day by day, to stay awake to the truth, even when it came from his own table.